Hello guys, today we're continuing our series 1 hour into subreddit, and today we're going to a special subreddit, really interesting one. Let's see. Today I learned. It should be an interesting one. Today I learned. Let's see. So yeah, let's see what we can learn today. We're starting our timer. Let's check that everything's okay. Seems like it. Okay, now 1 hour. So today I learned Microsoft invested 2 years and about 1 billion developing the keen a line of mobile phones that was briefly sold in 2010. After only 48 days on the market, Microsoft discontinued the Keen line in June 2010 due to poor sales. They blamed Verizon for not promoting the phones actively enough. I was around in 2010. I don't remember exactly those phones. Maybe I've seen them somewhere. In fairness, Microsoft is excellent at marking terrible decisions. Yep. Maybe it was their response to a BlackBerry, because BlackBerry back then, it used to be a really big phone brand. Let's see, let's continue. Today I learned that when Margaret Keen sued her ex-husband Walter Keen for plagiarizing her work, the judge asked both of them to create a painting in her signature style in front of the courtroom. Walter declined, sitting a sore shoulder, whereas Margaret completed her painting in 53 minutes. Yeah, I don't know the whole story about that, but of course, yeah. If somebody is stealing your work, of course you will know how to do it, so it's only logical then. Ooh, this one is interesting. Today I learned preparation for Y2K millennium bug cost of the US government around 100 billion. It wouldn't be until June 2017 that the government finally eliminated paperwork obligations for federal agency that ordered them to provide updates on their preparedness for the bug. So for those who don't know, Y2K, it was in 1999. The Y2K, it was something we feared about. I was just a kid back then, but yeah, it was everywhere. That the end of the world would come with the year 2000, because all the computers will have to turn their calendar from 1999 to 2000. They wouldn't know how to do it. Then at least we saw it that way when we were kids. It was like all the computers will turn mad and will just kill us. Of course, nothing of this happened. The normal Y2K millennium bug, it was just some computers wouldn't. It was the people thought that computers wouldn't be able to turn this year, so maybe it will be some calendar issues and some minor bugs. That costed 100 billion, that's a lot of money. Of course, nothing happened. Some computers, I think they turned to the year 0 or something like that, and then it was just an easy repair. But all in all, nothing really important happened at this day. And yeah, it was all nothing. Today I learned that the islands of St. Helena and Tristan da Cunha has its own dialect of English, called the South Atlantic English, complete with its unique non-standard grammar. That's interesting. Today I learned Oscar voters now must watch every nominated film in a category before casting a vote. No more voting based on buzz or hype. Wow, I'm just shocked it wasn't like that before. So whoever voted for these Oscars movies, they didn't saw the movies and just voted out of hype. I don't know if this was true. Now must watch every nominated film in the category. So they nominated a movie. There were like in every category there are like 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many movies nominated, and whoever voted for the best one in this category, like the judges, they didn't saw every movie. How is this even possible, man? Oof. Today I learned dense bedbug colonies go extinct in captivity as the adult females die from traumatic insemination. Okay. Today I learned the 1932 film Rasputin and the Empress implied Rasputin attacked Princess Irina Yusupov. The princess sued for libel and won settlements for 127,373 in England and in New York. This led to all persons fictitious disclaimer now standard in films. Yeah. Maybe it was the first time that somebody was defamated. Is it the word? Yeah. Today I learned the Netherlands has been closing prisons due to significantly low prison population, which is a result of decreasing crime rates, shorter sentences and focus on rehabilitation. Around 19 prisons have been shut down since 2009. Yeah, the Netherlands are usually pretty safe place to be, to live there and to go for a visit, so it's understandable. Today I learned that for a star on a Hollywood Walk of Fame there is a 85,000 fee plus an application process. Yeah, maybe. Let's see what the comment says. When I was young and naive, I actually thought that there were some Hollywood bosses who decided, okay, they've done enough in the industry, let's reward them with a star. Isn't it this way like now? Don't you have to be just really famous to apply for it? Hollywood bosses, yeah, I thought that 5 minutes ago, that just some people, they decided, okay, this person has done enough, he or she can go and have a Hollywood star. Okay. Today I learned that the designer of the first shopping malls had envisioned them as mixed-use facilities with libraries, apartments, green spaces, post offices and medical service being placed alongside commercial stores. So basically just like some kind of a self-sufficient building. Well, maybe. Today I learned that the revolution that brought about fall of communism in Czechoslovakia was triggered by the killing of Martin Schmidt, a student, I think it's Schmidt, I don't know, a student at the University of Prague who was killed during a police raid on a student demonstration on November 17. Schmidt, however, wasn't real. Really? So they made up this story. Interesting. Today I learned the 10-pound mini dachshund named Valerie survived alone for 529 days in the Australian bush after she ran away during a camping trip to Kangaroo Island, a remote island in southern Australia. She was eventually spotted and captured after 2 months of trying before being returned to her owners. Aren't they these sausage dogs? How they're called? Okay, I think so. It looks like a sausage dog. Today I learned that when President McKinley was shot in 1901, the best surgeon around was knee-deep in a complex operation. When told he was needed elsewhere, he replied that he could not leave, not even for the president. Even after he was told who his new patient was, he remained put and finished his work. That's a noble thing to do. Like, you are deep into saving somebody's life, you can't just leave her or leave him to die. You just have to finish your operation, then go work to another patient. Today I learned, as part of the larger 1968 Tet offensive, the US Embassy was raided by Vietcong commandos. According to a first-hand account, the defending American force included 3 members of the OSA, one of whom was armed with a 9mm Beretta submachine gun. Okay. Today I learned Mariah Carey makes 3.3 million per year from All I Want for Christmas Is You. Well, I heard somewhere she was doing around 20 millions per year. But yeah, maybe it's not true. Yeah, it shouldn't be true if they say it's 2.72. It's still a lot of money just from one song. And it's every single year. All these people trying to invest in them and start their own business when they could just be writing the next Christmas hit instead. It's not so easy that it sounds. Today I'll learn. Walruses feed by literally sucking live clams right out of their shells. They're able to create a vacuum in their mouths by drawing their tongues back like a piston. Walruses in captivity are able to suck 5 pounds metal plugs out from bottom of their paws. Whoa. Some powerful vacuum going over there. Today I learned, if you are allergic to pork but not other red meats, it's most likely because you are also allergic to cats. Maybe. I don't know. Today I learned that there are no longer any people alive who were born in the 1080s. The final verified person from that century was Emma Morano of Italy, who passed away in 2017 at the age of 117. Oh. Yeah, the world is moving forward, so it's just logical. Today I learned villagers on a South Korean island celebrated the birthday of an 800-year-old King Go tree that has a wife in North Korea. Interesting. Today I learned of a man who found 7.5 million in a storage wars unit he brought for $500. He had to negotiate with the original owners, who paid him $1.2 million to return their money. Whoa, how do you find 7. How do you lose 7.5 and then you put $7.5 million in a storage and then you forget or you don't pay the fee? Because those storages, if you don't pay your fee, they just give it in open to the public so they can buy it for $500 or something. There is a problem with the story. The source is unreliable and biased. Okay, that changes things. Okay. Today I learned scientists have been able to trace the start of HIV/AIDS to King Leopold's Belgian Congo, originating as far back as 1909. The first person to be infected probably got the virus in 1920s. Maybe, but don't AIDS come from monkeys? I think it's not original. I mean, it's not a disease that it's been on people before. I think it's been from monkeys, and then somehow from monkeys it transferred to humans. Yeah, humans. Who remembers Indiana Jones? So humans used to eat monkeys maybe they still do in Africa, I don't know. But when Europeans went to Africa, of course, they started trying eating some monkeys and everything, and maybe that's how the disease passed from monkeys to humans. Read David Quammen's book The Chimp and the River. Yeah. All about the origins of HIV/AIDS, or better yet, he has a whole book about diseases humans have acquired from animals called Spillover. One chapter is devoted to AIDS. Yeah, this disease came from monkeys, definitely. For chimps, maybe. Today I learned the reason Japanese bonus tracks were so common was because CD and album productions was more expensive in Japan. Bonus tracks were an incentive for Japanese consumers to not import the cheaper foreign editions. Yeah, that's true. That always bothered me. Why albums meant to be released in Japan, they always had like extra tracks, extra songs there. That's why. Today I learned, after reviewing the case of a patient who was mistakenly taken for another patient's invasive electrophysiology procedure, including the results of the institution root cause analysis found 17 distinct errors has occurred, no single one of them of which could cause the event by itself. Okay. Today I learned the youngest mother in history who gave birth at the age of 5 is still alive today at 92 years old. Oh man. Poor thing. Today I learned that the restaurant owner in Kentucky internationally flooded his own restaurant with clean water to protect it from incoming river flood. Is this a clever solution? Because some maybe it is, but the dirty water would still go inside somehow, or not. For those who don't want to look at a million ads, this is the only text in the entire article. A riverfront restaurant took some drastic measures to protect their business from flood waters. Co-owner Andrew Masterson of Captain's Quarters Riverside Grill in Prospect shared this video on social media. They intentionally filled the building with fresh water in an attempt to keep dirty flood waters out as the Ohio River flooded over the weekend. Masterson says they used sinks, faucet and well water pump to get about 6 feet of water in the building. Masterson says this is a huge interruption of business but saves them from extensive cleanups. Yeah, maybe, but okay, I don't know. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Today I learned that sexual inactivity among young adults in the US has doubled in just 14 years. In 2010, 12% of 18 to 29-year-olds reported having no sex in the past year. By 2024, that figure had risen to roughly 24%. "18 to 29-year-olds. Does it? Yeah, it doesn't say like gender specific if it's male or female, but yeah, just in general. Well, that's also another sign of technology developing. Like we have better computers, bigger monitors, bigger cell phones, and you know where that leads to. Watching some dirty things online. Today I learned that most of Costco's profits comes from membership fees and not product sales. In 2024, 65.5% company profits comes from membership fees. I am not familiar with Costco's. Today I learned about the Melungeon, a mixed race people from colonial era found in Tennessee, Virginia and North Carolina. They have European, Black, Native American and East India backgrounds. Many passed as whites as their ancestors did. Let's see how they look. Okay. Nice. Unfortunately, some democracy came to them. Today I learned that Sweden once had a real-life Shakespearean Christmas tragedy. King Birger invited his two brothers who shared the kingdom with him to a Christmas banquet, and after much drinking had them locked in a dungeon to die so he could rule alone. He was overthrown in the rebellion that followed. Sweden. I've been in Stockholm. Really nice city. In all fairness, his brothers had tried the same things some years earlier. Okay, then it's only fair then. Today I learned in 2013 it was reported that soldiers in the German army were developing gynecomastia, man boobs, due to an exercise where they repeatedly struck their left breasts with their rifles. The repeated abrasions encouraged the formation of breast tissue. So they were running and the rifle beat their chest and they were... okay. Okay. Isn't that just the muscle growing stronger? No, but if it's just like beating your chest, yeah, maybe. Today I learned that during the fantasy comedy era, 1960s, NBC debuted a show called My Mother, the Car, which features a deceased mother reincarnated as an antique car who communicates with her son through the car radio. It lasted one season, and it's considered the second worst show of all time. I mean, it does sound terrible, in all fairness, but people were doing any kind of things. It's even today now. You just open Instagram, TikTok, and people are doing all kind of things. This premise is not even that surprising. Today I learned Cleopatra seventh, the famous one, was the first in her entire dynasty to actually learn Egyptian. As a descendant of the Ptolemies, her bloodline was overwhelmingly Macedonian Greek. Yet, she was one of the first in her family to blend Greek and Egyptian identities in a serious way. Okay? Today I learned your gums do not grow back after receding. Today I learned in 2006 a transplant heart was removed from a patient whose own heart has recovered. A transplant heart was removed from a patient whose own heart has recovered. In 1995, surgeon Madi Yakub had not removed the original heart during the transplant surgery with the hope that if the patient heart was given a timeout, it might eventually recover on its own. And it did recover. That's amazing. It's just amazing how many things about the human body we still don't know to this day. We know a lot of things, but we still have to discover so many things. Today I learned that during the First and Second World Wars, there was a lot of debate regarding whether to attack defenseless enemy pilots and aircrew after they had escaped their stricken aircraft and were descending by parachute. It's now treated as a war crime under the 1949 Geneva Conventions. I don't know. Yeah, it's only good that it's treated as a war crime now. Today I learned Aruba, Curaçao, and Saint Martin are members of Interpol, despite being classified as independent territories of the Netherlands and not sovereign states. Today I learned that Virginia Racial Integrity Act of 1924, which imposed a one-drop rule, the count as colored permitted up to 1/60th American Indian ancestry because the Virginia elites like to claim descent from Pocahontas. Yeah, okay. Today I learned SF Taco Shop San Francisco, maybe, once offered free meals for life to anyone willing to get its logo tattooed, and at least 50 people actually did it. It closed in 2012, but people who got the tattoos now get free pupusas from the restaurant that took over the lease. Today I learned 1342, the city of Florence appointed a foreigner as temporary governor in order to fix their banking and debt crisis. His attempts to tax the rich and restore flat taxation were against his agreement with the elite, but so successful that the lower classes tried to make him a ruler for life. 1342, you say? Nearly 700 years have passed and we are still at the same situation. Yep. Théorème Pompeo, the man who made appearances in formers for Showtime, rotisseries and coined phrase "set it and forget it," also popularized the phrase "but wait, there's more" on TV as early as the mid-1950s. Yeah. You know those commercials.
But wait, there's more.
These TV spots where they used to sell some home things, home appliances and stuff, and there was, you get in, if you pay this, you'll get this.
Like buy one, get one free.
What?
And then, wait, there's more. Today I learned a King Henry I, known as the Fat, who is not known for much except for his great girth. He has been considered a colorless personality whose reign saw significant events in which he apparently played no leading part. King Henry I, the Fat. Let's see, there are some pictures of him. Well, is this considered fat? Okay, let's not do this thing now. Today I learned that males can get breast cancer. Yeah, I knew that. It's very rare, but still, it is happening to some people, unfortunately. Today I learned while Gaddafi was in Italy for the World Food Summit, he hired 200 models to attend the party, but instead spent the entire night lecturing them on Islam before giving them copies of the Quran and his political book. We are better not getting into politics and religion. Today I learned that according to legend, Emperor Alexander I of Russia might have faked his own death to live as a hermit in Siberia. Said hermit later became canonized as a saint. Historians are debating this since it actually has a plausible evidence to it. I think more people than we think fake their own deaths just to live a normal, happy life. Today I learned that Curtis Prim, one of Nvidia's co-founders, left the company in 2003 and sold all his shares by 2006. Today his net worth is 30 million, but if he had held into the Nvidia shares, his net worth would be roughly 70 billion. As always, it's just luck, not just luck, but like not seeing into the future. I mean, 30 million is still a lot of money, but nothing compared to 70 billion. Today I learned 2015 mixed martial artist Yang Bing died due to dehydration when weight cutting for a fight put on by One Championship. Later that month, One Championship banned weight cutting by dehydration and now holds fights based on a competitor's walk-in weight rather than pre-fight weigh-ins. That's sad. Normally sad things, like when something happens, it sets a precedent and somebody then takes an action against it, so it won't happen again. Maybe they should have thought that before. Today I learned about Barle-Hertog, Belgium, which consisted 26 parcels of land largely within the Dutch city of Barle-Nassau. In World War I, these were safe zones for Belgians resisting occupation in the war, as the neutral Dutch government wouldn't allow the Imperial German army to cross their land into these areas. Interesting. So, today I learned that the Great Storm in 1703 was so devastating the Church of England called it God's punishment for the sins of the nation. It set windmills on fire from overspinning, tore the lead roof of Westminster Abbey, and wrecked so many ships that special news sheet listed the 1,000s of death. This was a really big storm back then. I never heard of it. Let's see. I think there's a Wikipedia. The Great Storm of 1703 was the destructive extratropical cyclone that struck central and southern England in 26 November. Pooh. There was a really big storm there and sounds not so charming. Today I learned after a series of unexplained disappearances in Japan in the 70s and 80s, some believed it was North Korean spies who were kidnapping them and taking them to North Korea Republic. This was considered a conspiracy theory by experts until 2002 when Kim Jong-il publicly admitted to the plot and apologized. Today I learned that a plasma center in Haiti called Hemo-Caribbean was responsible for amplifying the early AIDS outbreak and it becoming into a global pandemic by its unsterile conditions. Hemo-Caribbean at its peak exported 1.6 thousand gallons of plasma to the United States monthly, mostly of hemophiliacs. Yeah. Today I learned that Thomas Harris, creator of Hannibal Lecter, has only written 6 novels in 50 years. 5 have been adapted into films and 4 feature Hannibal. He also went 43 years without a major media interview. Many just maybe living a happy life, don't want to be bothered with and don't want to be famous and recognized, so yeah, just logical. Today I learned when Eric Pritz presented his song Call on Me, to Steve Winwood, the song heavily featured the Winwood sample. He was so impressed he re-recorded the vocals for Pritz. Eric would later go 20 years refusing to play the song live, citing a desire to distance himself from its commercial legacy. Today I learned in 1815 a man named George Wilson attempted to walk 1,000 miles around London in 20 days. After the press covered his walk, large crowds of circus acts, prostitutes, troublemakers and alcohol salesmen showed up. He later was arrested for disturbing the peace 1 mile into his 16th day. Wait. So he was arrested just because he wanted to walk his walk large crowds of circus acts. Yeah. So poor man, at the end he was arrested. Let's check the comments. Should be interesting. Should go viral, causing mayhem even back then. Yeah, it was 1815 viral trend. We saw this one. Today I learned the youngest mother of... Oh man, we also... Okay. Today I learned when Monty Python's Life of Brian was released in 1979, its religious satire subject matter was highly controversial. It was banned by 11 local councils in the UK, nationwide in Norway and Ireland. The film was marketed in Sweden with the tagline, "So funny it was banned in Norway." Yeah, those countries, they do have some beef there. Today I learned that Judge Andrew Jackson, later US President, halted court, grabbed a pistol and personally subdued a man who had cut a baby ears off and then... No. Today I learned Oscar we saw this one. Today I learned about the kissing bandit Morgana, who rushed the fields and kissed 37 NBA players, 12 NBA players and thousands of minor leagues and even the San Diego Chicken. Okay. Today I learned that Niccolo Machiavelli has a long forgotten work often entitled The Description, for brevity, that describes in detail the methods Cesare Borgia took in deceiving and ultimately assassinating rival leaders who conspired against him. Machiavelli is really good to read. I like the man. Today I learned that long before Bruce Lee became known for martial arts, he'd already made his mark in completely different fields, appearing in Hong Kong films as a child, winning his school's 1958 boxing title, and that same year taking first place in Hong Kong's Crown Colony Cha-Cha dancing. I've heard about that, yeah. He was so good, he was also a dancing champion. He used to dance Cha-Cha. Today I learned in 1964 Olympics, the downhill ski race at Innsbruck, that's in Austria, was won by A. Zimmermann with a time of 2 hours 18 minutes 16 seconds. 12 years later, at the same run at Innsbruck, the gold was won by Franz Klammer with 1 hour 45 minutes 73 seconds, beating the old record by over... downhill, so it's 2 minutes... No, sorry. It's 2 minutes 18 seconds and 16... How it's called in English? I don't know. So yeah. So this is 1 minute 45 seconds 73. Yeah. Beating the old record by over 32 seconds, often called one of the greatest ski runs in history. To beat a record with 32 seconds, it's really big accomplishment. Normally nowadays records are beaten by I'm not gonna say it. Today I learned the Milky Way is orbited by dozens of satellites, galaxies, some thousands of light years wide. Yeah. The universe is so big, we can't even think of how big it is. Because if we say something is big or small, is comparing it to something else. But the universe is so vast and so enormous, so gigantic, we can't even grasp how big it truly is. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is so big, we can't even wrap our heads around. Today I learned some universities awards aim to pay recipients without additional work. Okay, whatever MAs to BAs is. Today I learned 1890 Anna Leah married, painted, love locked out to mourn her husband who died 3 months after their wedding. She said, "I feared people saw forbidden love while my love waited for the door of death to open and reunite us." First painting by a woman in Britain's National Collections. Oh, poor woman. Which painting is that? This one? Yes. Today I learned the most popular grown form of strawberry, the garden strawberry, is a hybrid of two other species, the Virginia strawberry and the Chilean strawberry. Yep. a lot of fruits and vegetables. Nearly every one of them is not like we crossbred them, and they're not what they're in the wild, or they used to be in the wild. Today I learned it's illegal to sell permanent markers in New York City to minors under 18 to prevent vandalism. It's only logical. Today I learned King William III of England died after he was thrown from his horse when it stumbled in a mole's burrow. The Jacobites would later toast to the mole, referring to him as the little gentleman in the black velvet waistcoat. These English people and their sense of humor. It's really nice. Today I learned that in 2013 NBA player Brian Scalabrine, who only averaged 3 points per game in his entire career, challenged 4 volunteers who criticized him over his bench role and claimed that they would beat him one-on-one in an organized event. Scalabrine won every game with a combined score 44-6. Yeah. Well, it's easy to just sit on a bench, not on a bench, but just sit at home comfortably, just sit on the sofa and criticizing as a professional player. But the difference is so big. Like, to be professional, just to be professional playing the NBA or football or whatever, you have to be so big, so good, that the difference to a normal person is like abysmal. Even the worst player in the NBA or the worst football player is so much better than an average person, or even an average athlete, like somebody who plays just for fun the sport. Today I learned Napoleon's prowess in battle was so legendary that Trachtenberg plan was drafted to specifically avoid facing Napoleon in battle while instead targeting his marshals and generals separately. Yep. Navy Reserve is only 77 people. Okay. Today I learned Mitsubishi is made up of around 40 companies that make up nearly 10% of Japan's public revenue. Ooh. Pretty big deal then. Today I learned Jamie Wardley and Andy Moss etched into the Normandy beaches the human silhouettes of 9,000 fallen soldiers to commemorate Peace Day in 2013. It was called the Fallen 9,000. We read about this one. Today I learned Magnus Carlsen's first passion as a child wasn't chess, but memorization. By the age of 5 he knew every country's flag, capital and population. Later memorized all of 422 Norwegian municipalities and their coats of arms, years before mastering chess. Magnus Carlsen is just a wunderkind, as you say. He was just born with privileged brain. Today I learned 60% of the globe cocoa supplies come from Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, where more than 1.5 million children work on cocoa farms. That is really... yeah. Today I learned, after reviewing the case of a patient who was mistakenly taken for we read this one. The first use of cleavage to rifle a woman's breast was in relation to Jane Russell in the 1943 film The Outlaw, when the MPAA took actions against the film. Director Howard Hughes designed a prototype of an underwire bra to give Russell 5 1/4 inches long cleavage. Okay. Today I learned that the United States government still sends 4,500 worth of clothes to the Haudenosaunee Iroquois Confederacy every year, and has done so every November 11th for the past 230 years in recognition of a still standing treaty with them. Interesting. Today I learned China suffered the most civilian deaths of any country in World War II. 10-20 million, even more than the Soviets. Really? I always thought that Russia was the most affected, like human-wise, the most affected country in the world. But maybe it was China. The Japanese were pretty bloody in other fronts too, especially in the Philippines and Indonesia. A lot of this is due to their use of terror as means to control large swaths of territories with as little manpower as possible. The Romusho system being very deadly and unbelievable levels of cruelty, brutal. Yeah. The Japanese, they were pretty bloodthirsty. Today I learned that 12-year-old girl Kathleen Thornley sneezed 12,000 times a day. Poor thing, poor girl. Today I learned that Sweden, for the third time. Today we saw this. We saw this. Today I learned that when Nevada was in the process of becoming a US state, Governor James Ye became frustrated at previous attempts to send a copy of the state's constitution overland and he had failed, and so decided to send a copy via telegraph at the cost of $4,000 equivalent. We saw this one. Today I learned that upon his 1926 death, the will of wealthy Toronto lawyer promised a large fortune to the Toronto woman who would have the most children. After a decade of legal fights, 4 women, each with 9 children, would share the prize, of which the Toronto government garnished a significant share. Of course, the government will take a share of whatever. So we saw this one. Today I learned about Chaim Solomon, a Jewish merchant who personally lent over 20 million to fund American Revolutionary War in 1775. The money he lent was never repaid and he died penniless. Okay, we saw this. Today I learned that 1991 meeting of the American Astronomical Society, Andrew Lyne retracted groundbreaking results that he had recently released, which detected the first planet orbiting another star. He received thunderous applause from his peers for his integrity, the courage to admit his error publicly. So the man made a mistake and then, admitted he did make the mistake. Today I learned 1653 Dutch sailor Hendrik Hamel and 35 crewmates shipwrecked off the coast of Joseon, modern-day Korea. Due to Joseon's isolation policy, they were not permitted to leave. After 13 years, Hamel and 7 others escaped by boat to Japan. He then wrote the first Western account of Korea. Today I learned a random 80-year-old woman hosted Saturday Night Live in 1977 because she won a contest where the grand prize was to host an episode. Is there a photo from? No. Saw that episode when it aired. She was super sweet, but alas, not very good in any of the sketches. I was rooting for her and remember being sad that it wasn't better. We read about the Great Storm in England, so it was pretty wild then. Today I learned that Japan National Route has a 300-meter staircase that's officially part of the highway. Nice. A German naval officer was executed for war crimes after ordering his crew to kill shipwrecked survivors of a U-boat attack. Yeah, of course. Today I learned that after Rome declared war on Carthage, Third Punic War, the Carthaginians attempted to appease them and sent them an embassy to negotiate. Rome demanded that they hand over all weaponry, which they did. The Romans attacked anyway. It's just a Roman way to do things. If you know, you know. The largest note ever printed by the US Bureau of Engraving and Printing was a 100,000 gold certificate from 1934 that was issued only for transfers between Federal Reserve Banks and never circulated among the public. Yeah. Even now it's a pretty big sum, but let's see. Maybe let's see a calculator, like how it is called, inflation calculator. No. Yes. So it was in 1934 and let's see, 100,000, calculate, 2.4 million. They had a bill that in today's money is worth $2.4 million dollars. Yeah. Today I learned Chinese used to use two sets of numerals, one for ordinary use and one for financial use. Bankers' numerals were designed to be forgery proof and prevent changing financial records after the fact. Interesting. Today I learned that the A-10 Ward Dog close air support plane, infamous for being a gun with a plane, has to return the spent shell casing from its massive forward-mounted autocannon to the plane to maintain its center of gravity. Yeah, it was, so this cannon was so big. Yeah, okay. Interesting. We read this one. Lucy Lambert Hale, the fiancée of John Wilkes Booth, was considered one of the most beautiful socialites of her time. She began receiving poems from suitors when she was still a 12-year-old child. Nice. Today I learned that one of the North America's rarest dragonflies, the Heinz emerald dragonfly, has nearly 360 vision, can fly around 40 km/h and hunt with success rate close to 95%, yet only a few hundred remain because its wetland habitat is disappearing. Incredible. Sad to see species that decline, but the vision and hunting rate are common amongst all dragonflies. I googled the speed, isn't particularly remarkable dragonflies either. Yeah. Today I learned about toxic oil syndrome in Spain, 1981, which was used to explain a mysterious illness that affected over 20,000 people, and it is believed to have killed over 1,000. Authorities placed the blame on industrial-grade rapeseed oil sold as food, but many believe pesticides were to blame. I never heard of this in Spain. I used to live in Spain back in time, like some years ago. I never heard of this. Today I learned the potential dictator of Spain died in a plane crash, likely because he overloaded it with fancy uniforms. Who was it? Potential dictator. Not only this, but the second potential dictator after him, Emilio Mola, also died in a plane crash a few months later. That doesn't look suspicious at all. Today I learned that there was someone other than Franco. Yeah. Franco is like the dictator of Spain. Today I learned that McDonald's stopped selling salads in the USA in 2020. Really? In Europe they're still selling salads. Yeah. In Europe they're still selling salads to this day. I don't know why. I mean, yeah. Today I learned about a mass transit incident where a 17-year-old lied about his age to be allowed to participate in a hardcore wrestling match and was later sent to the hospital after 2 of his forehead arteries were severed by a scalpel during the match. Oof. In these wrestling matches, like underground, people do some pretty nasty things just for some adrenaline, and I knew about this but didn't know about the show was also scheduled to feature dwarf wrestler Tiny the Terrible and Half Nelson. Half Nelson, yeah, if you know, you know. There is a move in wrestling called the Full Nelson, like a wrestling move, and yeah, Half Nelson, yeah. Today I learned that people in Marrakesh bring urns to meat stew to public bathhouses where it slow cooks in the bathhouses, water heating, or as they steam bath. Okay. The hepatitis E virus was discovered by a Soviet physician when he ingested fecal sample. No thanks. Today I learned that during the cremation process of a 500-pound body, the corpse was so obese that it set crematorium on fire. 500 pounds, how much kilos is that? Pounds per kilo. 326 kilos. It is pretty big body. Today I learned that the Andromeda galaxy probably won't collide with the Milky Way in 4 or 5 billion years. Now observation put the probability at 2% in the next 5 billion years and 50% in the next 10 billion. Eventually, though, it will happen. So we are still safe for another 5 billion years. Today I learned the brain consumes about 20% of body's energy and comprises 2% of the body weight. Yes? Yes, I've heard of this. The brain demands so much energy from the whole body. And still, if there is some scarcity of energy, it will keep the most part for it. Today I learned that outsider artist, the author Henry Darger, once attempted to write an autobiography which ended up having only 206 pages about his life and roughly 4,900 recounting the destruction of a fictional Illinois tornado named Sweetie Pie. In July 1946, the inflation rate of Hungary peaked at 41.9 quadrillion % a month. This meant prices were doubling every 15 hours. After the war. Yes. Seems legit. Today I learned Joanna Collins claims she'd divorce her third husband Anthony Newley due to starring in the X-rated musical Can Hieronymus Merkin Ever Forget Mercy Humpy and the Find True Happiness, which he produced, directed, wrote and starred in it. Man. Nice name. Today I learned about Salehana, a socially acceptable form of suicide in Jainism. Jainist monks restrict themselves to an isolated space and meditate to death fasting. It was banned in 2015, but the Supreme Court of India lifted the ban due to freedom of religion. It's estimated 200 Jains fast yearly. Poof. Today I learned Georges Lemaitre, a Catholic priest and scientist who first proposed the Big Bang theory, was opposed to mixing religion and science. In 1951, he was reportedly horrified when the Pope intervened and tried to draw a parallel of the Big Bang with the doctrine of creatio ex nihilo. It's really rare to see a priest who wants the science and the religion to be separated. It's because he wanted his research to be able to stand on its own feet and not be seen as some kind of ham-fisted way to religion into science. Yes. Okay. So it was interesting today. Our time is up. 1 hour we spent with Today I Learned. Well, today we learned some different things, really interesting things. And I'll see you the next time when we do 1 hour with subreddit. Thanks for watching.